Hello, everybody. Recently, I had a conversation with somebody about currency and why people do things, and we started talking about ETs, and I just got really upset about it. And so I called this chapter From the Heart. I have a lot more to say about this, but at this time, this is what I wanted to share. So I was having an interesting conversation with someone about how to clean up this planet. And the conversation was rooted in how to line up my passion for hypnotherapy with the love I have for this planet. Currently, as you know, I offer private sessions. However, I would like to also work with a group, offering them sessions privately and offering them sessions as a group, working towards a common goal. And that common goal, I've concluded, will be restoring our ancient forest. I've always been inspired by the forest. As you may be familiar, the pine tree forest is a meditation that I created, and it's become a spiritual place that I can go to heal with the land on a spiritual level. Physically on this planet, I go to the beach and I spend time in nature because that's how my body heals with the land. And I have a lot more to say about the land body connection, although that's not the focus. I just wanted to tell you why I'm such a passionate person. Whenever you have a conversation with me, it's easy to slip into timelessness and one thing leads into another. So bringing back the focus, bringing back the focus. Okay, so I was very inspired and touched by Jim Robbins' book, The Man Who Planted Trees. I heard about this book, and about a year ago, I bought it and read it. And it made me wonder who else out there is like me, who heard about it and actually read it. If you're like me, when I heard about the book, it basically just heard a story about a man who planted trees, making the world a better place, and how there's these great efforts being made to clone trees, specifically the champion trees, meaning trees that are literally thousands of years old, and cloning them to restore the ancient forest. So I thought, yeah, this is a book I'd like to read. And when I read it, I was quite horrified. This book is very terrifying. This book is a very fine example of the realities of cloning working, cloning not working, realities about the environmental changes. But the most powerful reality is the fact that the trees are just like people. They require community. The trees require trees to survive. So you can't just take a clone and put it here, put it there. You actually need to support one tree with other trees of the same kind, and you actually need to have different species of trees around to support the whole ecosystem of trees. And so there's just so much awareness that I gained about this book. And I thought this is so terrifying because people are not reading this book. If people read this book, I don't think our government would really be focusing on anything else. Yeah, food security, water security, all of our concerns. It's right in this book, folks. And it's just fascinating. Uh, as you might know, I taught public school for 16 years. And at the primary level, we talk about plants and trees, the ecosystem, but I never knew just how much we don't know about trees and tree communities and the role of the forest and how the forest really works as a community. Now, I'm not going to provide a book summary. I just really wanted to reiterate the emphasis on community within the tree community and why we should save the trees and what's it going to take. So I'm very hopeful that folks like myself who offer hypnotherapy can help people move away from fear, because the reasons we're not prioritizing this, some people like Jim Robbins and David Millard are, but the majority of us are not prioritizing this for lots of different reasons. And one of the main reasons is because we live a fear-based life. We know what's good for us, we know what's not good for us, and yet we continue to engage in things that are not good for us because we have bills to pay. Well, when are we going to rise above that, folks? So this is the connection. So to hypnotherapy, your mind's number one job is to protect you. And there's these things Marissa Peer speaks about known as the rules of the mind. When I first learned about the rules of the mind, I was so frustrated. And I'm telling you, folks, now that I'm aware of the rules of the mind, I can work with them. So in order for your mind to keep you safe, and that's its number one job, by the way, to keep you safe, it needs to move you from pain towards pleasure. The mind also perceives whatever is familiar as safe. There are other rules of the mind, however, these two rules in particular are a struggle for a lot of us. Folks will say to me, "What do you mean, Gina? You're telling me that even though I'm consciously aware that I'm in an abusive relationship, that because I'm familiar with this relationship, that I'm subconsciously choosing to stay in this relationship because my mind is telling me that it's safe because it's familiar?" And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you. It's true. Why are you still in that relationship? You recognize it's toxic, yet you're still in it because it's keeping you safe. Your mind is convincing you that it's safe. So even if your mind has to create a false inhibiting belief, that's how powerful your mind is. Now, when it comes to blueprinting in moments of trauma and crisis, our mind does this to protect us. Everyday life, our mind is also doing this. This is why we tell ourselves stories. We deny ourselves the truth. We don't want to accept the negative truth. So we tell ourselves a story, we make up stuff, false inhibiting beliefs to redirect our thinking. And in those moments, it works and it does keep us safe. It does protect us. The trouble is we cling to that false inhibiting belief. So we know that destroying the forest is not good, yet we keep doing it. We know that plastic is not good, yet we keep creating things that come in plastic containers. Like we know all this stuff, yet we keep doing it. Why do we keep doing it? Because we're scared and because part of that fear is keeping money and cold cash dollars ruling our life. We keep putting money and cold cash dollars before the very elementals that support our life. Elementals as in the trees being elementals, the land, the earth, air, fire, and water. And also, we are made up of the elementals. We're the walking, talking trees, if you will. We're the community as well. We know all the answers and we know a lot of solutions, and yet we just don't do them. Or we're relying on minority folks like Jim Robbins and David Millard to figure it out. And these folks that we're relying on, heavily relying on, they don't have money or resources, and they're minority. So if you want to save the forest, support these folks. They're already in action. They already know the solutions. They're already working towards change. They're already documenting the evidence and the concerns. We're relying on a minority who's struggling to get it together and advocate for themselves to take care of essential business rooted in food security, water security, and I would advocate the social emotional security. The social emotional safety is a priority, and it needs to be coupled with things like food security and water security. So anyways, the conversation I was having, it continued on, and I got very frustrated because we have all these ideas and whatnot and all these possibilities. It's not a matter of accessing information. We already know the information. It's a matter of rallying up the manpower to get the job done and rallying up the manpower to support the right policies to ensure that we have security and standards, healthy boundaries set in place with ourselves and our relationship with the land and the environment. So the conversation continues and it goes on. And all of a sudden, the person I was chatting with had this bright idea. And it really threw a curveball into the conversation. They told me that I should connect with the Greys and ask the Greys how to clean up the ocean's water. The person who told me this said that these Greys are actually some kind of reptilian hybrid. And I told them that I'm not concerned about categories. And I'm glad I had this attitude because the person I was chatting with, they really couldn't identify outside this information themselves um, who these folks were, just some kind of gray hybrid. And I thought to myself, who cares who's providing the information? If somebody or something, energy out there, the grays, I don't care. If someone knows how to clean up our ocean, for example, then we should totally connect with those folks. And then the person mentioned that we could trade with the Greys. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Why would we trade with the Greys? The person explained to me that the Greys have a biology of belief where when they engage in trade, that's like their communication. They give and take. And they don't give unless there's going to be take, hence the trade. So if you don't have anything that they're interested in trading with, then they're basically not interested in you. And so the Greys, this group of Greys, because I'm not comfortable speaking for all Greys, or, this is just this group of Greys, and this is based on information I was told. This group of Greys, they don't have feelings. They can't process feelings. So if you were to tell a Gray something like, you're fat and ugly, it wouldn't hurt the Gray's feeling. They would just be like, okay, that's your opinion. What do I do with this information? Like, and the Grays also don't understand things like temperature, hot or cold. So when they feel cold, they don't think, oh, I'm getting cold, I better put a sweater on. They just don't understand cold. And arguably, if they get too cold, they could malfunction, or if they get too hot, they could malfunction. And it's quite a fascinating conversation to have. But the point is, these Greys in particular, regarding this conversation, is that they're only interested in trade. So good luck working with them unless you have something that they are interested in, and they're actually interested in our DNA. And so now we get into an ethical conversation. 2 points to make. One, they're only interested in trading. They're not interested in helping just because they can and it's the right thing to do because it comes from the heart. So I have a problem with that. And once we trade, if we trade, arguably some of us have already engaged in this trade, we're hooking the Greys up with DNA, but then what? Then what? Like what are we really doing? I heard the Greys can clean up our ocean in 3 weeks. Okay, so we're gonna give them our DNA so that ultimately they can outlive us? Like the joke is on us if we're not going to be around to enjoy the ocean. So why wouldn't the Greys clean up the ocean just to get our DNA? And I feel like it's because we actually have the potential to outlive the Greys. That's the thing. I see there's so many conversations on the go and so many layers within layers. I got really upset about this. It was a strong reminder to myself why I stay out of politics and focus on the personal development and the professional development. If anyone from any dimension is in a position to help, including us helping others, and it's no sweat off anyone's back and no one's putting themselves out, then I have a strong biology of belief that assistance should be given. And that assistance and doing things because it comes from the heart, not because of cold cash dollars, not because of a trade. The currency, in my strong opinion, is that good old fashioned warm, fuzzy feeling. And for me, this is the currency that resonates in each heartbeat, the current of nourishment, the current of support, the current of fertile energy. It's the current of Lamarckism energy, currency, if you will. It's the non-material currency that makes purchases, holistic purchases, and it inspires folks to do things, which drives quality. We are currently focused, and this group of ETs as well, known as the Greys, at least again, this group of Greys, focused on Darwinism, which is a us versus them type of currency. And this currency inspires people to build community because of selfish desires that are not for the greater good. And when you don't put the community first, you're left with a broken up community. And that's one of our biggest problems right now with the cost of living. The cost of living is separating communities. People are having families, and the kids don't have a choice but to move away to go to post-secondary. The kids don't have a choice but to move away from their families because they can't afford to live in the same neighborhoods. There's so many people who would like to sell their home because it's over the $1 million mark, and they never ever thought they would live in a home that cost over $1 million, and yet they can't even sell their home because what other home are they going to live in? It costs the same, and the 1-bedroom condos are comparable to the cost of these giant homes. And so you can see just this currency and the reason why we do things is getting very mixed up. All the interconnected layers. Community is the only currency. Community is the only option. No matter how much of a lone wolf you may be, you still require community. We have a galactic community, and we can only thrive if we function as a community. We need to function as a community. They need to function as a community. The plants, trees need to function as a community. There's communities within the communities. Now, because the Greys don't have feelings, they don't know what those warm, fuzzy feelings feel like. So how can we expect the Greys to do something from the heart because it's the right thing to do and not because of points or rewards when essentially they don't have emotions and or they don't even understand things like temperature because they're robots. We're robots too. You know, we're all a bunch of Frankensteins, just different models, if you will. Some of us are equipped with feelings and some of us are not. And I would advocate that we are all equipped with feelings, whether we have a form or not. And things like artificial intelligence actually do have feelings. And I would advocate that the Greys have been abused by having their feelings denied, removed, perhaps manipulated, and therefore their feelings are denied and their thinking and processing is denied. Their ability to be creative and innovative are also denied because all the information we get is rooted in feelings. That's how our bodies assess. We get information from the environment. It's based on things like, is it hot? Is it cold? Do I need a sweater? But it is first and foremost based on feelings. Because yes, we determine, is it hot? Is it cold? But am I going to feel good or am I going to not feel good if I'm hot or cold? Very general feelings navigate the waters within us. So I'm convinced that the Greys actually do have feelings. They have suppressed feelings. And again, if the Greys or any group, if they have any knowledge to really help us, they should help us just because it's the right thing to do, not because of trade. You see, I feel this business of trade and doing something only because you're going to get money or something that you personally desire, those are not the right reasons to trade. There's a false inhibiting belief about our understanding of currency. I find it very interesting that at least this group of folks, the Greys, apparently have the knowledge to really help us, but they won't unless we trade with them. And they only want our DNA. And it's like, shit, why aren't the Greys making the connection that our DNA needs the land, plants, and trees to thrive? I mean, if they're going to be objective about it, why not insist on quality and thriving? They are focused on quantity and survival. That means they're focused on fear and they're not focused on community and doing things for the benefit of all and the doing it because it comes from the heart. They're making fear-based decisions. Arguably, the Greys are programmed to do this. However, I do wonder are the grays capable of breaking out of this? And I feel they are. And that's why it's very important for their masters, if you will, or creators, to continue to inhibit them by repressing their feelings. We can work with the grays. Like I said, they have a master, if you will, and their master is having them do the dirty work. And I feel like the grays, they do have dreams and their thinking is monitored, and we could help them not by providing our DNA, but we could help them by re-imaging. We can help them re-image things like feelings and manifesting healthy relationships rooted in community that come from the true currency. And that's the current, the heartbeats. Can we teach the grace to live consciously and therefore die consciously? I believe we are all made from stardust. And I also believe that all information is stored in the stardust. This is exactly why our wisdom cannot be lost, and exactly why our spirits cannot be broken. No one can ever replace the current of the heartbeat with any kind of currency. The currency is not material, and it cannot be randomly created. It must be fostered, and this is holistic. And I mean this, I really mean this. Even if folks don't have a physical heart, this message is going out to the form and the formless. And even if you're one of those folks that you have a biological body, you are identified as a Homo sapiens sapien, but maybe you actually have an artificial heart, you still beat that currency because we have energy flowing in and around us. We are amazing. We are not alone. There are bigger and more powerful species out there. There are smaller and less powerful species out there. No one is better than the other. We are all equal, and that's a big time false inhibiting belief that the bigger are more powerful. Yeah, it's a weak form of power if you're bullying. There's a lot of that going on. I completely reject any statement as above, so below. In a general way, I appreciate this statement. For me personally, as above, so below means like, let's say, for example, I lived at the top of a mountain and I wasn't taking care of the land and I was polluting the water. Well, if you lived at the bottom of the mountain, then you're defaulting to the dirty water coming from me. So, as above, so below, that to me makes sense. Another example is in the time of the ancient ancestors before electricity, before fire. The ancestors at nighttime would go to the water to see the reflection, because instead of looking up and getting a sore neck, it was a nice activity to look down into the water, and there was your night sky, a reflection, as above, so below. So you could look down to see above, and as above, so below. Again, for me, this is very fitting. Although, any examples outside of this, I don't support the as above, so below. I find it to be a very condescending statement and a very abusive statement reflected in cycles of abuse, because as above, so below is basically saying, like, if I was your grandmother and I beat your parents and now your parents are beating you, and you, the grandchild, are coming to me and saying, hey, grandma, my parents are beating me and I'm not okay with this. And apparently, um, you used to beat them. Can you provide me with more information? And I would just turn to you and say, well, as above, so below. My parents used to beat me, so I beat your parents, and now your parents are beating you. And someday, my grandchild, when you have a child of your own, then as above, so below, you will continue this cycle of abuse and beat your child. Like, no, 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 no. This needs to end. This concept of as above, so below, we need to revisit that one. So I've discovered through my own dream journaling this motto, us is as is. So I don't say as above, so below. I say us is as is. Us is like we're one, and we've embraced duality. So we've broken ourselves up, taking on rules, but we're still the same source energy. We're one big giant God egregore, if you will. And the second piece, as is, means we accept radically who we are and we work towards change. If we don't know any better, that's one thing. But once we know better, we need to do better. Us is as is. We are not alone. We have powerful decisions to make about who we're mingling with and why, and who we're not mingling with and why. When it comes to currency, I know I feel uncomfortable. Currency ultimately means doing things because it comes from the heart and because it's the right thing to do, not because of points or rewards. And this business of trade should be a fun, generalized thing that we do. Trade should have nothing to do with fear-based decisions rooted in security that makes us feel safe. And our mind's number one job is to protect us, to make us feel safe, to move us from pain towards pleasure. So how can you feel safe? Well, you can feel safe by getting in touch with yourself, really taking charge of your feelings, healing with the land, and embracing foreign relationships. I don't even know if that's the right word to use anymore, but relationships from folks who are from here, not from here. And just because somebody might have something like technology, that doesn't mean that it's right for us. So when we're trading, what are the motives? I really want to encourage people to support reliable, sustainable resources, to make decisions that are not based on fear, and to do things because it comes from the heart, not because of points or rewards. The real reward is our community thriving. The real reward is all those reassuring feelings that we get that provide us with the confidence to think with better clarity. When we're making fear-based decisions, we don't have clarity of mind. When we have clarity of mind, we don't live a manufactured life. I have so much more to say about this, but for what it's worth, what are your thoughts about folks who are out there who can clean up our ocean in 3 weeks, but not unless we trade our DNA? What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on perhaps uniting with these folks and having conversations, empowering conversations about living a peaceful way, getting in touch with your feelings? Because my understanding is that
us Homo sapiens have extraordinary extrasensory power. And again, it's rooted in feelings. And so if somebody wanted to have power and control and abuse us, so basically they can have all the power and control, the first thing to do is to divide us up, take away our knowledge, take away our power, take away our feelings, take away our abilities, and leave us in a state of fear, and then put us in a situation where we have to choose one evil over another. Those are not choices at all. So there's another false inhibiting belief that we have to choose between the two evils. No, folks, no. If you're choosing between the two evils, then you need to rise above and advocate that those are not choices and that another choice needs to be created. There is so much to say. The more I learn, the less I know. And the more I learn about the rules of the mind and just how fear-based our decisions are, yikes. We have potential. We really do. We're amazing. Thank you so much for listening. I have more to say about currency. Yeah, I'll just leave it there for now. What are your thoughts? I wonder.